fighting back to protect their families and themselves. But there are strict legal consequences, and you could end up in prison facing criminal charges.
There are over 60 reported residential robberies across South Africa every single day.
No suburb is safe. It's a highly sophisticated crime trend because of the high-risk nature of the robberies. Criminals who perpetrate home break-ins are organized. They do surveillance and come prepared. They're usually armed.
I will shoot you.
Tsepo is a former armed robber.
It's a job. It's how we eat. We get bread on the table. There is nothing we can do.
By the age of 16, he had graduated to house robberies. More than 2 decades later, he's robbed over 1,000 homes.
We're doing it professionally. You will just see us here standing next to you on the bed.
But South Africans are taking up arms in self-defense, pulling the trigger on home intruders.
I thought, for my family's sake, I'm not letting these people come into my house and do anything to my family. There's no ways.
Neil van Eden lives in Mtentweni on the south coast with his family. In February this year, he woke up to armed robbers in his home in the early morning hours.
They both had long knives, and I didn't want to get on the other end of those knives. So I was just prepared to do whatever they want, just to offer them no threat, and hopefully they'd leave us alone.
Law enforcement expert Lobo Das Neves says people usually go into a fight, flight, or freeze mode in a robbery scenario.
It is very difficult to predict, if you've never had experience before, what your actions would be in such a situation. If you train hard enough, if you have a good understanding of the law, and you know what your rights are, and you know what to do, then it will be slightly easier than going in cold.
And with all the training and vetting required to own a gun, in the dead of the night, consumed by fear and the overwhelming need to protect your loved ones, snap decisions are made, but the consequences are very real.
While the robbers ransacked Neil's house, they sent him to fetch things from the main bedroom. He then made the decision to protect his family.
That's when I thought of my gun. And then I thought, sure, no, I better not, because I wasn't sure if my license was right. And I thought, no, I better not. I better just... And then I thought, no, let me just do it. Face the problems later.
He took his weapon from the safe and went back to face the robbers.
I opened the door, and with the door open, I walked out with the gun sort of next to my hip. And I didn't walk out as if I was going to shoot him. I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought maybe he'd also react if he saw me with a gun. He wouldn't do anything. But he went for me rather. So just instinctively I pulled the trigger.
Neil shot the robber in the stomach. After falling to the ground, the wounded robber got up and fled the house. He died just up the road. Neil's incident is not isolated. In the last 18 months, there have been incidents reported in Bardeen, a suburb of Johannesburg, Vereeniging, Umhlanga in Durban, and Lenasia. In January this year, an intruder was shot and wounded in Baisley on the KwaZulu-Natal south coast. 4 months later, an elderly woman shot and killed an intruder and wounded a second one in Pinetown, Durban. In May, another 2 intruders were shot and killed in Linwood, Pretoria. And then, in the same week, a father shot and killed 2 intruders who allegedly threatened his baby in Middelburg.
But pulling the trigger can shift the balance very quickly. Within seconds, you go from being the victim of a crime to a suspect in a criminal investigation. Simply put, you could end up behind bars yourself.
The moment you put pressure on the trigger, you cannot call the bullet back. And you have to take full responsibility for your actions.
Advocate John Welch explains there's a 90% chance that the police will arrest the homeowner.
The police now arrive on the scene. They find a dead person or seriously injured person. They don't know the facts of this particular case. They're going to say, I'm not a judge in this matter. I'm investigating this particular matter.
Neil was not charged criminally. The case was ruled to be self-defense.
I regret taking a person's life, a young boy's life. But the audacity to come into my house with knives, demanding this and that. I didn't think, my finger just pulled the trigger because he was attacking me. with a knife.
While Neil's case was clear-cut, Das Neves has come across a number of cases where the crime scenes have been staged in order to claim self-defense.
We have advanced forensic science in this country. We can reconstruct that crime scene almost to a T. Even if you fired your firearm lawfully and you altered the crime scene, it's going to be very difficult for you to convince people that your shooting was justifiable.
Advocate Welch explains in terms of our current constitution and legal framework, the limitations to self-defense claims are clear.
That attack, that unlawful invasion or attack on my property must affect life and limb as well. So if it is only an invasion of property and there is no threat of violence executed towards a person, then I'm not entitled to use force.
But it appears that South Africans are willing to take their chances with the law rather than the home intruders.
Shoot him. I'll definitely shoot him. I mean, I'm trying to protect myself, so I'll definitely shoot him. If I must choose between going to jail and saving my family's life, I'll take the option going to jail. No, I wouldn't be worried about the law, I'd be worried about my family.
Just remember, not even the state has the right to effect capital punishment. It's out of the Constitution. We don't kill people in this country. Number two, the house owner or occupant has no right to be judge, jury, and executioner.
So, legally, you may only shoot at an intruder if there is an imminent and unlawful threat. But you can't shoot at somebody who is trespassing on your property, even if you assume there may be danger. Claiming self-defense is not a get-out-of-jail-free card.
And there's this sense and this urban legend out there that makes people believe that once someone has gained entry in your house, you have the right to shoot them or kill them, which is not true. Your first action, your first line of action should be to arrest the person and to keep him detained until the police arrive. That's the first course of action.
The law is stupid.
If I said to you, get out of my house, I have a gun.
I'm not going to listen to you.
Or if,
Because I know I'm wrong inside the house.
and you know you shouldn't be there.
I shouldn't be there, I know. If I see a gun, I will run out. Or if I have mine, I will shoot you first. I'm going to shoot you first.
You won't even think twice.
I'm not going to hesitate, I will shoot you first.
Residential robbery is a crime trend that's spiraling out of control. Gareth Newham from the Institute for Security Studies points out there's been almost a 40% increase since 2012.
Because of this crisis in policing over the last decade or so, these gangs are operating with much lower levels of risks of being caught and brought before the courts.
It's a high-risk crime, even for criminals. While Tsepo has dodged many bullets, he was once shot 7 times by a homeowner. Despite the risks, it's a lucrative line of work and his field of choice.
So why would you choose housebreaking and not hijacking?
Hijacking, IX5 is not, if you hijack it, they won't give you so much money. I can get a 30,000 ring inside the house, or I can get a watch which worth 50,000, 100,000 in the house. I go and sell it, and they give me half price.
And they don't discriminate. Anyone with wealth is a potential target, says Tsepo.
We go to all the areas, even to black people we go. As long as we know that they are driving nice cars, they have nice things, we go.
The average response time for security and police is 15 minutes in South Africa. A lot can happen in that time, explains Das Neves.
Unfortunately, robbers don't follow a handbook. Once they've entered your home, you don't know whether they just want to take your laptop or take your life, or both. There's no way in predicting what they'll do.
But having a gun in your home is not always a guarantee that you will be able to defend yourself successfully, explains Newham.
The research that I have seen in the past shows that you're much more likely to have your firearm taken away from you in a house robbery than to effectively use it to defend yourself, because they don't let you know they're coming.
And with big bounties at play, criminals like Tsepo won't hesitate to use violence.
And some of them, they want to show their wives that they get the man. That's how it's there. They must not fight back. You must just surrender yourself, that's all.
Did you threaten to shoot people?
Yes,
Did you shoot anybody?
yes.
Dead.
I'm not sure if he's dead or he's alive.
How many people have you shot?
That one, many times, I shot many times, but I'm not sure if they are dead or...
With murder and armed robbery rates at its worst in the last 5 years, Newham believes the police are to blame. He says it's not a matter of resources, but rather ineffective police leadership.
House robberies are committed by gangs that commit robberies over and over and over again. So you don't have to arrest thousands and thousands of people. You just arrest a few hundred and you can reduce robberies by a dramatic amount.
But until then, it appears to be a free-for-all. In Neil's case, the robber he had shot had just been released from jail, having committed related crimes.
It's pathetic. There's no rehabilitation. They go in and they come out, same people, even worse. They don't try and rehabilitate them when they're in jail. It's just somewhere to keep them.
South Africa has a high re-offence rate. Newham explains that the prison system doesn't address the driving forces behind crime.
In many cases, prisons in South Africa and around the world make the problems worse. You get networked to more serious criminals.
And while crime pays, it appears that the robbers have more rights than gun owners.
The law weighs so heavily in the perpetrator's favour in the housebreaking situation when the house is occupied. So the homeowner and the gun owner has so many things to consider.
For Neil, although the ordeal has changed him, he says the decision is still a simple one.
I'm armed when I'm at home. I don't want them coming here again. I would shoot again if my family or myself was under attack.
As civilians take up arms, criminals will continue to come prepared.
I will have to defend myself. If I have a gun, I will shoot you.
So would you have the presence of mind to do the right thing in this terrifying scenario? Share your thoughts with us using #CarteBlanche.